Namaskaram. Welcome to the theory class of Bhagavad Gita. I wanted to bring in more perspective to some of the things we learned in the previous sessions and also some of the things we would be learning in the future. So thought about creating a separate video to save time during our online sessions. Hope you all find this video useful. Let me know through your comments under this video. Broadly, there are three ways to attain Bhagavan: through karma, through bhakti, and through jnanam. Jnanam means knowledge. Karma. There are 5 things generally we as human beings worry about: profession, possession, family, body, and mind. And it's extremely difficult for us to give up any of these things. It isn't easy. So by doing these five things, we become karmis, because we worry about our positions, we worry about wealth accumulation, we worry about our professional life, we worry about our families, children, parents. We also worry about our body and mind. We hit the gym to look slim and healthy, and we take care of our mind. We meditate. It's all for ourselves. So all the time we are seeking blessings for ourselves, which is not bad. Bhagavad Gita doesn't discourage us from doing so. All it says is don't be a mere karmi all the time. Transition from being a karmi to being a karma yogi. Now, what's the difference? Karma yogi is a religious person. He or she also has concerns similar to karmi, means he is primarily concerned about those 5 things that I just mentioned. But he also uses one of those or couple of them to help the others. Maybe possession, so parting with some of your wealth. It's not easy, but then the idea is you need to think about others as well, not just about yourself. We should not be selfish. So if you're selfish, if you're only worried about yourself, your family, your children, your possession and profession, then you're a karmi. But using any of these 5 or using a mixture of these 5 concerns, if you're helping the others, if you're doing good for the sake of others, then you become a karma yogi. So the transition from being a karmi to karma yogi has benefits. What are the benefits? Reduction in dislikes and attachment. First benefit. Second benefit, dilution of ego and ahankara, mamakaram and ahankara. How difficult is it for some people to give away old clothes? Clothes that were once upon a time dear to us is also difficult to give away. Maybe we would have outgrown it, but we still want to possess for memories. It's very hard to give up any of these 5 things, but we need to try. It's not all the time about us. Sometimes it's about others, for others. It's about others. So that's karma yogi. Reduction in dislikes. I know people who complain a lot about food. They can't have a meal without 3 varieties of sabji and then a side dish and salads, and its meal is not complete. Why make such a big fuss about a meal? Eat whatever is given, as long as it looks healthy and it is healthy. I don't think we should crib so much about food. So that's the dilution of or the reduction in dislike, that can be achieved by transitioning from karmi to a karma yogi. Likewise, attachment. We are all attached to everything. Forget about parting with old clothes. Sometimes we want to possess more and more of something. We have something in abundance, but we need more of it. And we think that makes us powerful. How wrong we are. Also, attachment to anything, attachment to work. So I used to think, because I go to office daily, things are in control, my team members are in control, and we don't have production issues. How wrong. I was proven completely wrong. So once I had to go on an emergency leave, and the scene there was as smooth as before. So nobody is indispensable. So I need the job because I need the money, and I need money for a living. So I go to work. It's not that the work needs me. If not me, they'll find somebody else to replace what I'm doing. That was just an example. Bhagavad Gita is a collection of 700 verses. It actually appears right in the middle of the great Itihasa Mahabharata. Mahabharata is a huge collection of verses. If you know the number of verses in the Mahabharata, please put out a comment under this video. I will reply to your comment. Since Bhagavad Gita appears right in the middle of the Mahabharata, it did not have a dhyanam of its own. So dhyanam shlokam is the introductory shlokam that we chant, dedicated to a central deity upon which we meditate. Later, Madhusudana Saraswati, he introduced, or he rather proposed, a Gita Dhyanam which became very popular. So the Gita Dhyanam, which is usually chanted today before chanting the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, is a collection of 9 verses that we have learnt. And there are 4 prayers included. So the order in which we chanted need to be slightly restructured. The first shlokam that we ideally need to chant is Dhyanam Shloka number 7, which says, Parasharyavachas sarojamamalam Gītārtha gandhotkatam Nānākhyanaka-kesaram harikatha sambodhana-bodhitam Loke sajjana षट्पदैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद् भारत pankajam kalimala pradvamsi nashreyase. So this Dhyanam Shlokam is a prayer to the Mahabharata itself. Okay? So this compares the great Itihasa Mahabharata with a beautiful lotus having many petals and stamens and many. So it's a beautiful flower. And only bees, only honeybees that are qualified, that have done some good deeds in some time, even attempt to visit this flower. This is the essence of this shloka. The next dhyana shloka that we are supposed to chant is, the next 2 is a prayer to the Gita itself. Okay. So after shloka number 7, we chant shloka number 1, which is Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीमष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्. What it says is, so who is the teacher here? Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam. Narayana himself is the teacher. And Arjuna is his student. So Arjuna or we are also his students. Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye. It was reported by Vyasa. Vyasa is an avatar of Vishnu. Okay? So written by Vyasa and Purana Munina. He is written, he is a Muni who has written many things. Purana Munina. He has written almost, everything. Madhye Maham. It occurs right in the middle of Mahabharata. Advaita Mrita Varshini Bhagavati Mashtadya. So this is like, it describes the 18 chapters, okay, of Bhagavad Gita. And Ambatva, finally, it says Bhagavad Gita is like a mother to us. Why? Because a mother nourishes. She feeds and nourishes. So likewise, Bhagavad Gita is supposed to feed and nourish our minds and then contribute to the increase in spirituality. The next, so after 7, we are supposed to chant shloka number 1, followed by shloka number 4. Sarvopanishado gavo dogdha gopala nandanaha partho vatsa sudhir bhokta dugdham geetamritam mahat. So the Upanishads, not all of us can, like, one of the reasons jnanam, the knowledge way of attaining Bhagwan is tough. It takes time, right? And our lifespan is short. We have like maybe even if we live up to 100 years, it is very short. Vedas are huge, and believe me, I was reading somewhere that 3/4 of the Vedas are no more available. They've been destroyed. So what we have is just in possession of 1/4 of the Vedas. Once upon a time, there used to be a dedicated community, Brahmin community, focused only on learning and imparting Vedic knowledge. But we don't have, such a profession now. So it's more important for people like us to continue with this responsibility of sharing and imparting the knowledge that, our past generations possessed. So Upanishads are not easy. We don't have time, and we will not be able to cover this in our lifetime. So here, this shloka is so beautiful. It compares, it says that Gita is an extract of all the Vedas, right? All the Upanishads, everything. So it's comparing Gita to cows. Now, who is milking the cows? Bhagwan himself. Bhagwan is milking the cows. And what do we get? We get the milk. That is the Bhagavad Gita itself. Okay? So Gita Mritam, it's like Amritam, and it's Mahat. It's very pure. That's what it says. So Upanishads are like cows milked by Bhagwan himself. And who is the calf? Arjuna is the calf. And we need to drink the milk, which is the Bhagavad Gita itself. So it's an extract of all the Vedas together. So 7 followed by 1, then 4. So 7 is the prayer to the Mahabharata itself. 1 and 4 is a prayer to the Bhagavad Gita. And 2 is a prayer. Shloka number 2 is a prayer to Vyasa Muni. So it says, Namostu te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravinda Yata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः. So this is, it's like Vyasa is a very knowledgeable Muni. Okay? Namostute. So we salute you, Vyasa, for your Vishala Buddhi, for your knowledge, ocean of knowledge. Pulla Ravinda Yatapatra Netra. So his eyes are so beautiful, glowing out of knowledge. He is not considered a very handsome looking, Muni, but then because he is filled with knowledge, which is reflected in his beautiful eyes. That's what it says. Yena tvaya bharata taila purnaha prajwalito jnanamayah. So here, the lamp of knowledge, is filled with oil of Mahabharata, which you have lit, Vyasa. This is how we are praying to Vyasa. After that, shloka number 3, 5, 6, 8 and 9 are prayers to the Bhagavan. So we know that we have, we go to 3. It says, Prapanna Parijataya. We are comparing Bhagavan Krishna to Parijata, which is a wish granting tree. So anything that you ask is granted, O Krishna, and then salutations to you. Then we chant shloka number 5, which is Vasudeva Sutan. This is a very popular shloka. People usually chant only this. And it says Vasudeva Sutam Deva. It just describes. Krishna played so many roles, right? Kansa Chanura Mardhanam. He killed Kansa, Vasudeva's son. Devaki Paramana. He was Devaki's Param happiness. Krishna Vande Jagat Guru. You are the supreme teacher, Krishna. Okay, that's what it says. Next, you have to chant shloka number 6. This describes all the important characters of Kauravas and of course Pandavas. So Bhishma, Drona, it's like the Bhishma and Drona are like banks of a river on either side. Then we have Jayadratha, Gandhara, king of Gandhara, Shakuni, Shalya, Kripa, then Karna, Ashwathama, Vikarna, Duryodhana, then Pandava, of course. So the entire Mahabharata is like a Rana Nadi. Okay? Rana means war and Nadi, river. And some characters are assigned to different beings which usually dwell in the river. So, for example, Bhishma, Drona, I said, are banks, and Jayadratha, Gandhara, Nilotpala. Gandhara king is like Nilotpala. It's like a blue lotus because he appears very nice, but then he runs all bad thoughts internally and he's very easy to, he deceives people. And then Karna is Velakula, so powerful waves. Ashwathama, Ghora, Vikara, and Duryodhana, whirlpool. So different important, these are all different characters. And some of them, it's very interesting to find out why some of them were on Kaurava's side. Right? So we should know that. And Krishna, why he wasn't on Kaurava's side was, okay, a quiz question. So Pandavas got Krishna as their charioteer, right? What did Krishna give the Kauravas? Please post your answer below this video. I shall comment. So Krishna was a neutral, he played a neutral role. So he gave himself to Pandavas, right? He agreed to, he said, I'm not going to fight the war, but I will be your charioteer. And then what did he give? What did Kauravas get from Krishna? Please put out your answers. I look forward to it. After this, after 6, we'll chant 8 and 9. Mukam karoti vachalam. Sorry, my display is like, I'm not able to read, but the shloka number 8 is what? So the essence of this shloka is, Mukam means a dumb person can start communicating very well if he or she is blessed by your grace, Krishna. So means people, all of us have areas of improvement. So sometimes, this is like, this comes in our way of career growth. And then if we have Krishna's blessings, then we will be able to overcome those difficulties. Yat kripa tamaham vande Paramananda Madhavam. Madhavam refers to Hey Lakshmi Pate. Ma means Lakshmi, Dhavaha means Pati. So here he's being referred to, Lakshmi is giving Vishnu an identity, being her husband. Then we finally chant shloka number 9. Here, even it says, the gist is, even Brahma worships Vishnu, I believe, because Vishnu is the one who taught Brahma how to create, how to go about the creation process. And he completely delegated that function to Brahma. Even Brahma and Shiva worship Vishnu. So this is the essence of the Dhyanam Shloka. So order would be Shloka number 7 followed by 1, 4. 1 and 4 is a prayer to the Gita itself. It talks about Gita. 7 talks about the Mahabharata. 2 talks about Vyasa. It's a prayer to Vyasa, who wrote this. And then 3, 5, 6, 8 and 9 are prayers to Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Okay. This is the order in which we are ideally supposed to chant. Okay. So I think that's all I had to say for this video, and I hope you like this video, and let me know if you have a specific feedback. I can be reached out on YouTube, or you are free to text me on my WhatsApp number. Thank you very much.